It is 6:37, time for the Redskin Report. We got a lot of things to talk about here. And we'll be joined here in just a moment by Trevor Matich, who'll give us his take on it. Here's an interesting little statistic. The Redskins are 1-2. The Philadelphia Eagles, who we're playing next at FedEx Field, 1 o'clock on Sunday, 1-2. Do you know that there are now 15 teams in the league that are now 1-2?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of mediocrity in the NFL right now.
Yeah, but that means that, we're still in there. Okay, Trevor Matich now joins us with the Redskin Report, brought to you by Fork Union Military Academy. We were just talking about the 1-2 Redskins, the 1-2 Eagles. It's going to be it looked like a pretty rainy game. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. How do you size it up there, Trevor?
Well, I size it up to where both teams are desperate for a win, and both teams look at the other team as just the antidote for all their problems.
Yeah. Well, and okay, so you got that. I always look at, compare the quarterbacks. I mean, look, it looks pretty even here in the quarterback, maybe a slight edge to Kirk Cousins, slight. But then you got the Redskins have a better running game, but the Eagles have a better defense. How does that all work out?
Well, it really will come down, I think, to the way the running game goes, because the rain wouldn't affect the passing game as much as people think. Quarterbacks can throw a wet ball. The problem is the wind. And so if the wind is blowing around, that will affect the downhill running game. The downfield passing game. And so that means the better running team has the edge. And especially if the turf conditions are sloppy, which they tend to be at FedEx Field when it gets really wet and rainy, then the Redskins have the edge, not just because of their running, but because of the way that they run. Two big running backs in Jones and Morris coming downhill. If the footing is sloppy, when those guys slam into you as a tackler, they'll carry you for 2 or 3 yards, 4 yards before you can get them onto the ground. And I think that size really helps the Redskins.
So, Trevor Matich, let's talk about the turf conditions. You just alluded to it. I mean, we're talking about all this rain. It's saturating fields. I'm sure they're protecting the field over at FedEx. But how do you prepare? Let's say you're the Redskins. You're getting ready for that game on Sunday. Or let's say, you're the Michigan Wolverines coming off a humiliating loss that you just delivered to the BYU Cougars, a shutout last week, and you're going to be here playing Maryland. How do you prepare?
When was the last time you broke a sweat, Larry? Just out of curiosity, given my BYU Cougars grief like that.
I'm sorry. I totally forgot that you're an alum of BYU. That must have been hard.
Yes, I know.
That must have been really
Brian,
hard for you to watch. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
He didn't forget.
Listen, Brian, I want you to bring a big old steak in on Monday, and a raw steak, and slap Larry right in the side of the face.
All right.
And make good radio.
But honestly, how do
prepare.
the teams prepare for this?
The way you prepare is to get out and do it. I mean, teams will practice in their indoor facility, and the Redskins normally do in bad conditions. But on Thursday, they practice outside so that they could get used to the conditions. They also are dipping footballs in buckets of water to soak them, then pulling them out and snapping them to the quarterbacks and running the play like that.
Wow.
To get more acclimatized to the wet footballs. And that, I'm sure Philly's doing the same thing. That makes sense. The big question is, are they going to wear cleats that are as much as an inch long? Because now there's an issue, because usually in mud and bad weather, you wear longer cleats, and that's good because it gives you better grip, but it's bad because it's more likely to get your foot stuck in the turf and end up with an injury. So right now, they'll evaluate that based on field conditions.
I want to listen to Jay Gruden just for a moment here. He is talking about how you practice in the rain and wet footballs and all that.
The wet balls were, out there, and it's going to be important that we concentrate on the ball in the rain or the sun. It doesn't matter, but wet balls are different holding them than they are dry balls, so it was good for him to get some touches and some carry.
Now, as an elite long snapper, you had to deal with the slippery, wet pigskin. How is it different? Trevor?
Grip, and therefore the way that the way you're able to follow through, because if you're able to have a good grip on the ball, then as you throw it overhand or snap it, you get good grip and good control of the ball until your index finger, which is the last finger to touch the ball, is free of the ball. But if you don't have that grip, then that last little bit of push, that last little bit of control with your index finger as it leaves your hand, it slips a little bit. And so you end up not being able to throw as tight a spiral, as much velocity. And it's that last tiny bit of control that you lose And that can make the difference in a completion or an interception. And as we know, Kirk Cousins has been an interception problem again this year.
Yeah, and finally, you sort of alluded to it in terms of potential injuries with the cleats and the turf. The line, I mean, everyone talks, how is this going to affect the quarterback, the receivers, and the running back? The rain really affects the linemen because they're trying to do their job and go backwards or whatever they're supposed to do with their blocking and attacking of the quarterback. And that turf just wreaks havoc on their legs, doesn't it?
Well, it can. I think if the footing is sloppy, then it affects the defense in making it harder for them to rush the passer because they can't turn the corner and generate power on their pass rush. It hurts the offense the other way around because on the offense they can't get push on inside runs. But on outside runs where the defenders have to react and pursue, that helps the offense as well. So really, I expect to see a bigger game from the Redskins running backs on this because when the defense finds it to be a little sloppy, it's hard for defenders to be able to cut and move and pursue.
That's interesting. Well, listen, we'll check in with you on Monday and see how this all turned out. The Redskin Report with Trevor Matich is brought to you by Fork Union Military Academy.